Here come the tariffs, and Canadian politicians react. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Navigating the issues that matter to you. It's Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The tariffs are coming. As he promised on Super Bowl Sunday to do, U.S. President Donald Trump is imposing a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports into the United States from all countries, including from Canada. Trump imposed similar tariffs during his first term in office. Last year, Canada exported almost $25 billion worth of steel and aluminum to the United States, and Canada is by far the largest source of aluminum for the United States. Much of that comes from Quebec. Trump justified the tariffs, saying these actions are about saving American industry.
So the failed American trade policies have led our once incredible United States steel and aluminum industries, once incredible, not now, but they're not bad. I saved them because of my first term, totally saved them. If I didn't do what I did, I put massive tariffs, not the highest level, but pretty massive tariffs. We took in a lot of money and we took in a lot of jobs, but we were being pummeled by both friend and foe alike. Our nation requires steel and aluminum to be made in America, not in foreign lands. We need to create, in order to protect our country's future, a resurgence of U.S. manufacturing and production, the likes of which has not been seen for many decades. It's time for our great industries to come back to America. I want them back to America.
President Trump's pick for U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was with Trump in the Oval Office yesterday when this tariff order was signed. Lutnick said, unlike the first term's tariffs, there will be no exceptions this time, and that it's about bringing steelworker jobs back to America.
So when you imposed the tariffs the first time, right, you added 120,000 jobs. And since that time, it's been picked away and nicked away and excluded away, and we've lost 107,000 jobs. And remember, these aren't just general jobs. These are steel workers in America, and now you're going to bring them back. You're going to bring those 120,000 jobs back to America. You are the president who's standing up for the American steel worker, and I am just tremendously impressed and delighted to stand next to you.
As for Canadian reaction to all of this, speaking with reporters in Paris, where he has been attending a global summit on AI, Prime Minister Trudeau said the tariffs will have negative consequences on both sides of the border, and there will be retaliation.
We are the U.S.'s closest ally. Our economies are integrated. Canadian steel and aluminum is used in a number of key American industries, whether it's defense, shipbuilding, manufacturing, energy, automotive. Together we make North America more competitive. We will be working with the American administration over the coming weeks to highlight the negative impacts on Americans and Canadians of these unacceptable tariffs. But we'll also be working with our international partners and friends. And if it comes to that, our response, of course, will be firm and clear. We will stand up for Canadian workers. We will stand up for Canadian industries. And more Canadians will stand up for each other.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford left for Washington, D.C. today. He's there as part of a delegation of Canadian premiers. Ontario has important steel manufacturing in Hamilton and in Sault Ste. Marie. Prior to his departure for Washington, Premier Ford appeared on the American Business News channel, CNBC, called the tariffs unnecessary, and also said Canada will retaliate.
Well, that's the last thing we want to do, but we will retaliate. And, Canada will feel the pain, there's no doubt. But I can assure you, when we retaliate, the Americans will feel the pain. And for what reason? There is no reason. Our trade with Ontario is split equally down the middle. We do approximately 500 billion Canadian going both ways. And if you take energy out of the sector of trade federally, then all of a sudden now you have a $45 billion surplus on Canada. And we're the number one customer to 17 states, number two to 11 others. Ontario alone. Canada, we're the number one customer to 28 states. Why would you go up and attack your number one customer is beyond me.
Premier Ford wasn't the only Canadian politician popping up on American cable news. Canada's NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, was on CNN. He suggested Canada target Tesla, owned by Elon Musk, with 100% tariffs.
Those businesses that buy that steel and aluminum from America or from Canada will have to pay more for it. But they're not going to just cost, they're going to pass that on to the consumer. And Donald Trump promised to lower prices. His policies are going to increase prices. It's going to hurt Americans. It's going to hurt Canadians. No one wins in these trade wars. But this is not a fight that we wanted to pick. We were happy to continue to have a strong relationship. Donald Trump has picked this fight, so we're going to fight back. We just announced today, what I would do is put in place a 100% tariff on Tesla, directly targeting Elon Musk. Because Elon Musk is proudly touting this idea of the 51st state, so let's hit back at Elon Musk. I've also said we should shut down the supply of critical minerals. Another move that directly targets Elon Musk and his Tesla company. The batteries that he needs require these critical minerals. We've got tools, and we should be ready to use them. It's not something that we wanted to do, but if Donald Trump wants to bring this fight, know that we are ready. I'm putting Donald Trump on notice.
In a statement today, the Aluminum Association of Canada said the Canadian aluminum industry helps to generate more than $228 billion in economic output for the U.S. economy. The Canadian Steel Producers Association said 40% of Canada's steel imports come from the United States, and it encouraged the federal government to retaliate. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio. Here with Professor Ian Lee on Now You Know on News Radio. We must diversify our trade. What would you suggest? Where would you start?
I testified yesterday afternoon by invitation before the Senate, a Senate committee called the Progressive Senators Group or something. And there were about, just looking at the screen, because some were virtually attending and some were physically there. I was in the railroad building, the new Senate, temporary Senate building,
yes.
opposite Chateau Laurier. And I'd say there were about a third of the Senate was there, about a third of them. And so they were asking me and two other guests, three or four other guests, views, what should we do next, that sort of thing. So I had my own list, and in fact I'm finishing up an op-ed that I'm submitting to the Globe and Mail this afternoon on what we should be doing. And I'm going to answer your question. And I said one thing that it sounds like a contradiction, but it isn't. I said, number one, the idea that we can, substantially pivot away from the United States is delusional. It is simply delusional. It's the largest economy in the world, and is literally smack dab on our border for 8,000 or so kilometers, as opposed to going halfway around the world to another country that doesn't speak English and has a completely different legal system. The American economy it speaks English, is dominant language, same as Canada. Very, very similar legal system, English common law, same time zones, same geography, very similar culture, not the same, but similar. So I said we must maintain access to the largest economy on Earth. Then I said, but now we must also diversify as quickly as possible. And I said, instead of dreaming up industries that don't exist in Canada, we have to examine closely our comparative advantage. That's a phrase from economics. And we have a comparative advantage in natural resources because we've been doing it for 150 or probably 250 years, going back to the Courrier de Bois and that hunted beaver pelts in the 1600s. I'm not exaggerating. That was part of the natural resource endowment. So we have, from the very origins of even before Canada came into being, we have developed our natural resources. And so I argued, and secondly, there were countries coming here practically begging us for them.
Yes.
The Japanese Prime Minister was here a year ago. Please, please, please send us LNG so we can get off dirty coal. So did the Prime Minister of South Korea. So did the Chancellor of Germany. And we said, no, go away. There's no business case, which is just, if you think about it, it's ridiculous. He's saying to the customer that wants your resource that there's no business case for you wanting the resource. Now, if that isn't massive confusion in the mind of the Prime Minister, I don't know what is. You're staring talking to a customer who says, I want your product. And you're saying, no, you're confused, Mr. Customer. You really don't want our product. Imagine going into Home Depot. And you say, I want to buy, a bathtub. No, you don't need a bathtub. Says
no, you don't need a bathtub.
No, go away. You don't
There's
need
no
to
business
redo
case
your
for
house.
you owning a bathtub.
That's how foolish that was. So, but I don't just mean LNG. California is saying we need your timber big time to rebuild Los Angeles. We have agricultural products, and we have timber, and we have critical minerals. And those are the things we should be focusing on because the world wants those resources, and we're good at making them and processing them. So that's what we need to do while maintaining access through negotiations to the American economy.
And sell them where?
I'm sorry?
Sell them where?
What, our resources?
Well,
Asia
whatever we want. Asia and
Asia,
Europe.
people don't realize this, and this is what's driven me crazy about this government. China is the number one, to use their lovely word. Mr. Guilbeault says it all the time. It's pollution, Okay, let's use Guilbeault's word and put it back into his face. China's the number one polluter of GHG emissions in the world. It accounts for 30% of total world emissions. Not because the Chinese people or government are bad people, but because 60% of their energy totality is provided by coal. And coal is the dirtiest of the dirtiest of the dirtiest of the fossil fuels. LNG is vastly cleaner. So is oil, by the way. And so China needs our LNG. Japan is I believe it's number 3. China's 1, U.S. is 2, I think Japan's 3, South Korea is 4, and India is 5. 5 countries are 75% of the world emissions. And so here we are, we've got a solution called much cleaner natural gas, and Mr. Guilbeault and Mr. True are saying, no, we want you to stay on that dirty coal. No, we don't want you to get off coal onto LNG, because that's what we were saying by denying that export. So we should ramp up those exports as fast as we can, and part of that is to build pipelines both east and west.
Anita Anand, who's the transport minister, the internal trade minister as well, said we're going to move heaven and earth to reduce barriers to interprovincial trade. And she was asked, so what are you doing about supply management? And she said nothing. The supply management is off the table, untouchable. Yeah. What do you think is ahead for supply management in agriculture?
I wrote, as you know, an op-ed in the National Post. I summarized this paper by the chief economist of the President of the United States. And at the core of the paper was their sense, the Trumpians and Donald Trump, that the American society, American people, America have been disadvantaged by the whole international economic trading system since 1945, the Bretton Woods system, because they said countries around the world have demanded and obtained full access to the American economy, and then they turn around and protect certain parts of their own economy from American companies, American business. Supply management is at the top of the list. It's been listed by the Americans from the Clinton administration, maybe longer than that, but certainly from the Clinton administration forward in the annual report of the U.S. Trade Rep tabled in the Congress. It's not a secret report. You don't have to be an American to access it. Anybody can Google this report and pull it up. And they've listed the 5 or 6 protected industries for a third of a century. So this long predates Donald Trump. The difference is that Trump, whereas past presidents said, we don't like these protections that Canada's doing to keep out American businesses, but we're not going to make a big deal out of it. We're not going to put tariffs on you. And Trump, the difference between Trump and past presidents is he says, yes, I'm just as upset as past presidents, but I'm going to do something about it. The other presidents didn't. So just to come specifically to supply management, because people, it's become almost mythical, and people, we got to protect it, There's I looked this up, StatsCan data. There's about 8,500 dairy farmers left in the country, and they're almost all in Quebec. When Pierre Trudeau's government established it in 1971, because I did a paper on it, there were 150,000 dairy farmers. I'm not talking the children, the spouses, just the dairy farmers, 150,000. And they implemented it to, guess what? Protect dairy farmers from, they said it will wither away and disappear if we don't do supply management. So what happened from 71 till now? Well, the dairy farmers went from 150,000 down to 8,500. and they're vanishing. So we're down to about a tiny number, okay, in Quebec. And the effect of supply management, because it's been studied, believe me, by many different studies, is to effectively double the market price of those products protected, which is dairy and poultry. I can drive across the river, I've done it, across the bridge at Prescott to the price chopper, and I can buy eggs or milk
in New York.
And even after you exchange the American dollar, and I get adjusted, on my credit card for Canadian dollars, the price I'm paying for the identical weight and milk or whatever comes out to about 1/2, even after allowing the exchange price, the exchange rate differential. So there's no question supply management manages and sets the price much higher, which exploits all kinds of Canadians. So, and yet there's this mystery that our government, our political parties, all of them, continue to protect a system that exploits, milks, and plucks millions and millions of ordinary Canadians. I believe it's immoral. I'll repeat that. Supply management is immoral.
Wow.
If we want to help the dairy farmers, we should do what all the other countries of the world do. You provide direct subsidies from the Department of Agriculture. That's what the U.S. does. You don't interfere with the price to the consumer. That's what the UK does. That's what the EU does. That's what Australia does. We're the only country in the world that sets the price at double what it would be otherwise to thereby exploit and milk and pluck millions of ordinary Canadians, including low-income people who are very challenged in the first place. So I think it's going to go because I think that Trump is going to, once we finally get down to negotiations, he's going to say, well, here's what you have to do to get the tariffs lifted. And he's going to, I think, reference those 5 or 6 protected industries, one of which is telecom, that will not allow Verizon to come to Canada or AT&T.
Yeah.
And
I don't have time to get into other industries. I don't have time to get into other industries. In fact, we're right at a time they're playing the music, but you think supply management can't be off the table, or is not going to be a breakthrough with Trump?
Correct.
Fair enough?
Correct.
Okay, let's end it there. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. I'm Rob Snow, our Newsday panel, just ahead on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
He is a panel partner at Crestview Strategy. Hello, Ashton.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. Great to hear from you, along with Jordan Paquet, who is a senior consultant at Bluesky Strategy Group. How are you, Jordan?
Great, Rob. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
So I think that makes this a Prince Edward Island focused panel today. I think everybody...
You love to see it. You love to see it.
Except for me, of course, from that other island. But
island to an island. It's okay.
Okay. I'm addicted to political polls. That's no secret. I love a good political poll. And we have polls that are suggesting the Liberals have made up significant ground on the Conservatives. One poll, a new Nanos poll, suggests the lead may be down to single digits, an 8-point lead for the Conservatives. Still a lead and an 8-point lead, but it's down to 8 points. Ashton, what do you think is taking place in the federal political horse race?
Yeah, no question. The polls have shifted a bit in the past 3 to 4 weeks. We've seen about 4 or 5 different polls now, which show movement, which is sort of otherwise outside the standard margin of error. So, essentially we've gone from the Tories polling close to about 50% to around 40%, which has mostly benefited the Liberals. And I think there's, a myriad of things contributing to this shift, and it's all happening at the same time. So we have a Liberal leadership race, which is drawing eyes and ears to their candidates and their ideas. We've got a Liberal Party that's freed itself from the millstone of, Justin Trudeau hanging around its neck. And we've got a Canadian population that I think is, increasingly anxious and angry about what's happening south of the border, and it's having an impact. And so for me, it's an interesting time in the polling landscape as a whole, because there's so much happening and the news from the south is as frenetic as ever. And so, there's a lot for people to react to, but even still, you look at the numbers, it's pretty healthy for the Conservative Party. In the lead up to an election, it's still exactly where you would want to be, right? So decisively ahead and on track for majority government. But yeah, it's shifted a bit. There's no question.
shifted a bit. Okay. What do you think is taking place in the federal political horse race, Jordan Paquet?
Yeah, I mean, to Ashton's point, there's so much happening out there that's forcing voters to kind of look around. Maybe some undecideds are starting to kind of make more firm decisions. We also have the Ontario election. Sometimes people don't differentiate between what's happening federally, provincially, in certain jurisdictions as well. And then obviously just the complete focus of Donald Trump. Who I think is the political equivalent of ADHD. I mean, he'll go from one issue to the next. Today, maybe he's meeting with the King of Jordan, so I'm sure the Gaza issue will come up again. And then swinging back to, obviously, the trade wars and slapping and using about slapping 100% tariffs on Canadian cars. So all of these things sort of put, to some Canadians to rally around the flag a little bit. Okay. And then with the Liberal leadership race, with Trudeau gone now, you do see kind of maybe some people giving them a second look. But at the same time, I think the Conservative strategy is still kind of where it's always been. To Ashton's point, they're still running quite far ahead where they'd like to be in going to a general election. And we always knew that the polls were going to go up and down. I mean, elections and just these outside factors constantly change things. So once we actually get into a general election, once Mark Carney, who inevitably will become the leader, as we all can see, things are just going to continue to start to move. And once he actually starts getting challenged directly on his ideas and Canadians see a clear choice in front of them, that's when we'll take the polls more seriously.
But Ashton, why do you think that the Liberals are benefiting the most from this changed landscape?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's Liberal momentum as much as it is sort of this post-Trudeau consensus that's forming. And again, I do think there is a considerable portion of the population that's otherwise draping themselves in the flag. Look, a federal party polling near 50%, which is where the Conservatives were about a month ago, it's rather bizarre. So it has right-sized a bit. But in my opinion, there's no momentum there. I mean, we've had two ministers drop out again saying they're not going to run yesterday. It's not all champagne and caviar over there. That having been said, I do think, we are going to see a little bit of a pivot in terms of messaging from the Conservative Party in the not distant future, because I do think a couple of things have changed. I mean, the situation with the United States has changed. The situation with the Liberal leadership has changed. So we're in for a busy few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. How do you expect then, Jordan, the Conservatives to respond to this? If now Ashton doesn't really think the Liberals have a lot of momentum, but nevertheless, you do have this narrowing in the polls. So how do you expect that Conservative war room with its millions of dollars to respond?
Yeah, I think they're kind of sitting back right now, getting the ads ready. There's a big rally here in Ottawa Saturday that they're billing as a bit of some policy relaunch. And Pierre Poilievre's been putting things in the window over the last number of months. I mean, he's been talking this Canada First strategy for quite a while, and he's been taking some criticism from some corners about it. Seems like, we just sound so much like Trump. Well, that might be exactly the mentality that Canadians are looking for to tap into. I mean, he was just out yesterday touting a new northern strategy, having a new northern base. He's been talking about strengthening the Canadian supply chains, making our own economy more competitive. And now you're seeing the Liberals sort of retreat from all the policies that they've put in place for the last 9 years, from the carbon tax, capital gains tax, to what have you. So, I mean, it's only going to be a matter of time before the Liberals are challenged, and they're going to have to explain their policies over the last 9 years and why suddenly the change. Are they just going to come out and straight up apologize for everything? I highly doubt that. But it is going to be, as we get into it, as the debates come on, they'll be likely much more challenged, and I think that's what the Conservatives are looking forward to.
I'm just wondering, Ashton or Jordan, how many pairs of Zegna triple stitch Veta sneakers do you have in your closet?
Apparently not as many as Mark Carney. So, on the point that Jordan raised before the break. So, yes. There is a large rally happening in downtown Ottawa on Saturday. But last time I heard anything about it, the Conservative Party was expecting well over 2,000 people.
Wow.
I'm heading to that event myself.
Okay.
I'm expecting a rather fiery speech. I think the pivot is going to be very much about how Canada can and should shield itself from the rhetoric coming from south of the border, about what Canada can do to improve its economy, to insulate ourselves, how we can augment our military and geopolitical position, and what we need to do to stop shooting ourselves in the foot, interprovincial trade barriers being a big one there. And then, of course, the fun part. I'm expecting that attacks on Carney are going to start getting a lot sharper. The reality is, Carney is a champagne liberal who is cosplaying as a concerned man of the people. There are many directions you can go with that.
Yeah, like being caught on social media in what was supposed to be kind of a, look at me, I'm an everyman, I'm playing, road hockey with my friends in my $2,000 sneakers.
Wasn't that your life growing up, Rob? Or
well, it wasn't mine.
Okay. Right.
Wasn't mine. And it may have been his at one point, but it's not his life now. I mean, what next? What comes next? Is it does Jagmeet Singh pick him up in the Maserati? Just, where does this go from here? I don't know. What do you think, though, of what I don't know if you're going to that event in Ottawa, Jordan, on Saturday, but, what would you expect to hear from Pierre Poilievre at this big Canada First rally that they're having on?
Oh, yeah. No, I'll be there. And I mean, they're encouraging people to wear red and white, colors of the Canadian flag. I think he's been really teasing a lot of things in the window for the last bit. As I mentioned, I mean, some of it's been more formulated over the last year that they've been rolling out this northern strategy coming yesterday. I think, they'll be more formally kind of putting a lot of else out in the window. And I do agree with Ashton. I think he's going to have a very big sharper focus on attacks on Carney and tying him to Trudeau. I just got back from the Nova Scotia PCAGM on the weekend. Sons of Maxwell, the band, who I'm sure you know from Nova Scotia, Rob, one of them, Dave Carroll's a candidate for the Conservatives in Sackville, and he's put out a new song called "If It's in the Dough, It's in the Cookies." It's all tying about Trudeau and how they're all just going to be the same no matter who's there.
Okay.
It's all going to come out the same. So I don't know if you're going to see that song played at any point soon, but I'm sure you will. It'll be a new hit in conservative circles, but it will be a lot of just trying to tie them together. Because Trudeau's still very unpopular in the minds of Canadians, no matter what's happening with the idea.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the New Democrats and what might be happening here. I mean, we've talked about how there is some change happening, and none of it seems to be to the benefit of the New Democrats. Like this new Nanos poll has them down to 16%, which is pretty much the low for the New Democrats in recent years. And whatever gains are being made by the Liberals, it doesn't seem to be coming at too much of the expense of the Conservatives, but rather it's the New Democrats who could really face, if this trend holds, a shellacking in the next election. What sort of outlook do you think the NDP has with an election on the horizon, Ashton?
Yeah, it might sound overly contemptuous, but there's just no strategy. And I think the NDP is suffering from either an identity crisis or a crisis of conscience at this point. The party of workers is having their lunch eaten by other parties, and their poll numbers are awful, as you pointed out. And then their latest pivot, which I find quite shallow, frankly, is that they're now trying to drape themselves in the flag because of Donald Trump. And then, of course, you remember that the NDP have essentially called Canada a genocidal state, which has a post-national existence for the past number of years. It's incoherent, and everybody is noticing. And so on the numbers specifically, yeah, look, they're in the mid-teens. It seems to be distant third place, likely fourth place in total seats if you average it out after an election. And I think it's probably going to be a death sentence for Jagmeet Singh coming out of the election. And if the NDP membership, to the extent that it even exists, decides to keep Mr. Singh coming out of that election, I think we're going to have to conclude that they're not serious about winning elections.
Yeah, what do you think about the prospects for the New Democrats right now, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, at current look of it right now, they're toast heading into the election. It's,
toast.
I don't see where they pick up anything. I can't see many areas where they can really strongly hold on, save a couple certain seats, I think Jagmeet's in trouble in his own seat, certainly. Now, and that can benefit the Liberals in some really tight races if the NDP vote completely bottoms out. I'm thinking more some of the, the downtown Toronto ridings, downtown, some of those Edmonton ridings, whatever that Conservatives were perhaps looking to gain. Could have some effect there, but it's a two-horse race at this point. And then obviously with the bloc in Quebec, but I mean everywhere else, the NDP's just done. They've had completely nonsensical approach for the last couple of years. They've just tied themselves to the Liberal wagon, and have just tried to be.
And you would think a guy with $2,000 sneakers and Mark Carney would that would provide typically great contrast for the New Democrats, but not really working right now for them. Okay.
No, not so much. And, they've been given every opportunity to differentiate themselves or put themselves on a different footing, which would otherwise showcase their brand, their policies, their ideas. But to Jordan's point, they keep shooting for the low-hanging fruit, not realizing that they're shooting themselves in the foot as they do it. So it's terrible strategic direction.
Yeah. And they had every opportunity as well to defeat the Liberals while Justin Trudeau was the leader of the Liberals. How many opportunities they had last fall, maybe looking in the rearview mirror, regretting some of the decisions they made. Let's work from the assumption Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership. I know we're really going out on a limb here. What do you expect him to do? Do you think he will call an election right away? Or would he wait a while, perhaps even cooperate, like the previous Liberal government did, cooperate with the New Democrats? What do you think is the most likely scenario, Jordan?
If I was advising Mr. Carney, which I'm clearly not, but I think this would be good advice, is I would go right away. I would, take a couple days, whatever, let your ground troops rest, but then go for it. I mean, it's going to be hard to imagine him being much more popular than he will be immediately after winning Liberal leadership and being sworn in as Prime Minister. And I just think it's going to be something that perhaps some people won't expect. It's going to have to avoid his team putting some energy into remaking cabinet, remaking a throne speech, doing all those things. His team's already going to be out, having worked, campaign ready, and that would be the best time, in my opinion, to go. If he waits too long, Conservatives have tons of money. And outside a writ period, they can spend as much as they want. So you'll see just TV ads nonstop running just against him. So I think his best advantage would be to go early.
So you think then, under that scenario, we could be in election in about a month, right?
Yeah. I don't see any reason why.
Election campaign in a month. Okay.
I would say, I'd put voting day at this point sometime kind of late April, early May. I would sort of keep an eye on those dates.
Okay. Mark Carney, if he wins, what do you think he'll do? Election right away or wait a while? What would you say, Ashton?
Yeah, the numbers are where they are today. He should go right away. And I'll just bring up one thing. I don't think enough ink's been spilled about it, but Carney not having a seat in the House of Commons, that's a big deal. And it will be a horrible visual for him to reopen Parliament, only to be on the outside looking in. I really don't see how it can work. And let's assume there's, a vote of non-confidence. The guy's not even going to be able to vote. So if his numbers are where they currently are, and to Jordan's point around the spending constraints that come with an early election call, I think it's probably the best strategic move for him, yeah.
So again, you think we're into an election campaign like the writs are drawn up a month from now?
I do. So
right?
I don't think we make it to March 24th, second week of March.
Second week of March, okay. Well, great to hear from both of you. I hope you survived the big winter wallop that is going to hit the Capitol a little later this week. Thank you again.
We're East Coasters. We'll be fine.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
Right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah, okay. A pair of Prince Edward Islanders joining us today, although they're making their home in the nation's capital these days, but originally from the birthplace of Confederation. Ashton Arsenault from Crestview Strategy and Jordan Paquet, Senior Consultant at Bluesky Strategy Group. Talkback is coming up next. We're hardcore into politics on Talkback today. I hope you'll join us and join the discussion. Give us a call. Our phone lines will be open right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today's topic, federal politics. Yeah, we're talking about federal politics today in a big, big way. We want to know, given everything that's been going on lately with Trump and tariffs, with Trudeau announcing his resignation a few weeks ago, with Mark Carney, by all accounts, the front runner to become the next leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada, with the Liberals' popularity on the rebound, according to some polls, closing the polling gap with the Conservatives. What would you like to see happen next in politics, in the next few weeks or in the next few months? What do you want to see happen in Canadian politics? 1-833-668-2577. Let's just kick this around. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. Phone line's available for you right now. Any number of scenarios could unfold in the next few weeks and the next few months. We want to know, what's your preferred scenario? There are really no wrong answers here. For example, here's a scenario, albeit I think an unlikely one. But there are lots of people who think it's wrong that Parliament is prorogued right now, and they want Parliament to be recalled so that MPs, the people we elect and send to Ottawa, can debate this current situation with the United States and, even if needed, vote on measures that could, say, for example, blunt the impact of tariffs. Is that what you would like to see? Parliament recalled, MPs back to work in Ottawa, in the House of Commons, debating and voting on what is happening in this country and to this country right now? Because our Parliament is not supposed to be back for another 6 weeks or so. We're just asking. We're just wondering, what would you like to see happen here? 1-833-668-2577. Or here's another possible scenario. Would you prefer if the winner of the Liberal leadership race, whoever that happens to be, calls an immediate federal election, just as our panelists suggested Mark Carney would do? Meaning that the next federal election campaign would start sometime in the next month or so. Maybe a month from today. Because the winner of the Liberal leadership race is going to be announced on March 9th. Should that person, whoever it happens to be, say, I need a mandate from Canadians because of what's happening with Donald Trump in the United States, so there should be an election right away. And then that next federal election campaign would start, as I said, in about a month. What would you think of that scenario? Or here's another one. Would you prefer the Parliament resume as scheduled March 24th? Okay, in about 6 weeks from now. And the government actually try to govern. What about that idea? A government that governs. Maybe you might be thinking, because this is a popular opinion in Ontario right now is not the time for an election. There could be the need for the government to come up with financial assistance programs to help Canadians and Canadian businesses deal with the impact from tariffs, from Donald Trump, and from the Trump administration in the United States. So we shouldn't have an election. And the government, the next government, should govern and do the job. What do you think of that? That's a scenario that can't be ruled out, I suppose, just because of the recent history of cooperation between the Liberals and the New Democrats, or even, some comments that we've heard from the New Democrats from time to time that it's open to working with the Liberals in order to pass relief measures that would help Canadians who could be hurt by the impact of these tariffs. What do you think of that idea? The leader of the next government actually tries to govern while this crisis is happening. Here is yet another scenario. There's an election. Either because the new leader of the Liberal Party calls one, or the government is defeated during a confidence vote in the House of Commons, and the party that wins that election is the Conservative Party. And Pierre Poilievre becomes the next Prime Minister of Canada, and he leads a majority Conservative government. Despite the narrowing that we are seeing in most of the polls, that is still the most likely outcome right now. What would you think of that? There's an election, and the Conservatives win it, and they win it big enough that Pierre Poilievre is Prime Minister leading a majority government. Is that your preferred scenario, say, in the coming weeks or months for Canada? And yet one more. There's an election, again, either because the new Liberal leader calls one or the government is defeated on a confidence vote in the House, and the winner of that election is the Liberal Party. And either it's a minority Liberal government, or you never know, maybe the Liberals win a majority government with their new leader. And there's a brand new Liberal Prime Minister leading what they'll say is a brand new Liberal government. What would you think of that? How does that sound to you? Those are just some of the scenarios that are in play right now. There's probably even a few more that just don't spring to mind right now. Maybe you can bring them up. What we want to know is, just given everything that is going on in this country right now, Trump, tariffs, Liberal leadership race, a parliament that is prorogued, a prime minister that is resigning, a federal horse race that appears to be tightening, with the Conservatives still in the lead. What would you like to see happen next in Canadian politics? Give it some thought. Give us a call. Number to call, 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that to our call screener. We'll make your call a priority. Let's get going here. Hi, Herman in Calgary. You're on the air, Herman. Go ahead.
You know, all I want is maybe beer, some wine, maybe some good rye, pizza, popcorn, and watch it all go down.
Okay. Do you have a preferred outcome as to everything that goes down?
I think it's time to stop poking the bear and actually get on with doing some pretty reasonable demands from the United States as far as border security and cracking down on crime. But I mean, honestly, why is Donald Trump even wasting his time with the Trudeau government? And let's suppose that Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership. Why would he even touch that? And there's no Democratic mandate there. It's a minority government. All three leaders of the opposition parties have come forward and said they don't support the government. And let's have an election and let's actually put somebody in the job that has a Democratic mandate to pursue negotiations with the United States. Because this government, this Liberal Party, just isn't it.
Okay. So let's say Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership. Everybody expects him to win right now. Do you think he should call an election? Yeah, but he could call an election right away and seek a mandate from the people and run in a riding and get a seat in the House of Commons. Would you like to see that?
I could see that happening, but I don't believe that it will.
You don't think it will? Okay.
The evidence seems to point against that direction. And Brian Lilley, I know perhaps an evil world, doesn't believe there's going to be an election until 2026. And I can see
that's what he thinks. Yeah. Yeah, I know Brian quite well. We worked together for a long time. Brian Lilley and I at the same radio station in Ottawa for about a decade or so. So I know Brian quite well, personal friend of mine. He has this scenario whereby there's some kind of national emergency is declared that delays the election. And like the way the pandemic shut down Parliament for so long, right?
And to be honest with you, listen to what the Liberal Party is saying. This is an existential crisis in the United States. It's an affront to our sovereignty, except for the fact, since when are we entitled to trade with the United States?
Okay. But you would prefer an election?
I'd prefer an election today.
Who do you want to win the election?
Well, I think that I'm coming from Calgary. I would be absolutely run out of town if I didn't say Pierre Poilievre.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Herman got us off to a good start. Kyle is in Waterloo. You're up next. Kyle, what would you like to see happen in the next few weeks, the next few months in Canadian politics, Kyle?
Hey, Rob, I think you've got a very challenging question here, actually. To unpack it is, the more and more I'm thinking about what to say, the more complex it becomes. So kudos to you for for the topic. I'd love an election sooner than later. Much to the caller previous. I think right now, and I'll be clear, and I'll just state my bias off the top here. I'm going to be voting Conservative federally. That doesn't mean that I agree with all Conservative policy or that I don't support, policy across, different parties. What I think we're seeing right now, obviously, with proroguing of governments and what have you, is almost, given that the tariffs have come in since, or the conversation of the tariffs and the threat of the tariffs have come to light since the prorogation of Parliament, I feel like it's posturing at this point in time. I think the Liberals aren't going to rush anybody back in advance of that initial date in March. And the reason being, I think, is because the longer this stews, the more, and as we've seen since they prorogued government and the tariffs, and it's building more and more through the polling results anyways, support for the Liberal government. So even if they don't... Exactly. So kudos to them for making a smart play. I don't know if they had the foresight to foresee that. If they did, kudos. If they didn't, well, making the best of a situation. I don't think Mark Carney's a good leader for Canada. He might be the best, based on polling, candidate to lead the Liberals. But if we look at his track record as an individual in what he's done professionally, he left the United Kingdom in a soup kitchen, so to speak. I don't think that's a strong vote. But what we're seeing with this tariff, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. We're seeing Canada rally behind the threat from Donald Trump on tariffs and sovereignty. Sovereignty is not going to change. Everybody needs to do a bit of a reality check, in my opinion. The United States is not going to seize or annex Canada to become the 51st state. Let's be real, right? That's not happening.
So when Mr. Trudeau says you have to take this threat of annexation seriously, you're thinking he may be doing that for domestic consumption because it puts the focus on Trump and the threat of tariffs and that threat instead of, say, a focus on Trudeau's record for the last 9 years, for example.
Well, exactly, and that's what the polls speak to, right? Do you honestly think that Canadians as a society are going to allow America to seize control of our country over, to just simply sign off on a document? There's absolutely no way that that's going to happen. Canada, in no fashion whatsoever, will ever become the 51st state of America. And if we do, I'll be glad. I'll be the first one to pack my bags and move out of the country I was born in. We're not American. We're Canadian.
So you want an election soon. We're going to have to wrap this up. You want an election soon, and you want the Conservatives to win it.
Yes.
Right?
And I don't.
Yes.
And
Gotcha.
the longer it drags on, I think the less likely it would be a majority Conservative, and more likely it would be a minority, which I also don't mind. I think that many people have opinions.
I don't know if a Conservative these days, I don't know if a Conservative minority government would last very long. I think for the Conservatives, it has to be majority or bust. Okay, thank you. We've got to run. Tim in Halifax. Hi, Tim. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just I called to get in on this. I'm absolutely stunned that all the people with the asinine comments that are coming out, hyper-fixation on Donald Trump, when we've got Justin Trudeau that has led up to all this. He was poking at him, making fun of him during his campaign trail, did not take him seriously, then left us in the position we're in, on top of all the other stuff he does, and everybody's focusing, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump this. How about we start investigating the government, it's like they're doing down there now, to find out where things are actually going and what's going on, crack down on our corruption and worry about our backyard. Trudeau did all this. We're left out without a leader right now, or a government sitting. These guys, overpaid fat bureaucrats, that get all this time off, driving fancy cars, $2,000 shoes, whatever way you want to put it. Was Trump wrong with our border? They busted, what, $50 million plus in methamphetamine going down to the States there the other day? And then the opioid crisis we were facing. Like, there's just so much we got to take care of. Like the last caller said, in this day and age, Donald Trump is not coming up here to take Canada.
Okay.
That is just a distraction that Trudeau, Mark Carney, and them are using to cover their own asses. Sorry, in my opinion.
No, that's okay. But what would you like? So in the next few weeks, next few months, what do you want to see happen? If you had your way.
I would like to see charges laid against Justin Trudeau for all the scams.
Charges laid. Okay. I was more thinking maybe an election. How about an election?
Yeah, that too. But you remember the other Randy, they called him there for a while, that was caught.
Yeah, Randy Boissonneau from Edmonton.
Yeah, misappropriating money that was meant for Indigenous people. Where's the charges? That's government fraud. Fraudulently receiving money from the government. I'd be in jail.
The accusation is his firm that he co-founded was bidding on contracts that were supposed to be for Indigenous when nobody in the firm was Indigenous. They didn't. They didn't win. He claimed they didn't win any of the contracts, though. They didn't win any of the contracts.
It's still fraud.
Okay. Okay.
And
so you'd like some investigation into that. Okay. You'd like some investigation into that. Okay.
All of it. Obviously, this is what we're seeing. Like, I used to work in the restaurant business, and we had a saying: for every one complaint you had 6 others that you didn't hear. Right. So for every one piece of fraud or scandal we hear, how many more aren't we seeing?
How many more Randys are out there? Okay. Thank you. Judy is in Calgary today. Thanks for calling. Judy, you're on the air.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
The idea that we should put the government in place, the Liberal non-elected leader, and let him govern for a while is the idea that scares me the most. This is someone who doesn't even have a seat in the House of Commons, that isn't elected, that has no record of acting as a political person. He's been the governor of the bank, but that's not the same as running a country. There's a lot of different scenarios that he would have to consider. And in one way we're saying, we have to get back to the center and we have to be more friendly to business, which is what Pierre Poilievre has been saying for years. And this man is surrounding himself with the government that just finished saying, oh, that's racist, oh, that's horrible, oh, you're so awful for thinking that way. And now they're jumping on board saying, oh, yes, that is how we have to govern. And we want them, we want to leave them in control of government for a month, 3 months.
So the idea, let's say Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership and then tries to govern with the same kind of cast of characters that surrounded Mr. Trudeau, the same cabinet ministers and the whole thing. That is not palatable for you, you would say.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Okay.
This is the same group of people that collectively said there's no economic case for building LNG, marketing LNG, for building pipelines. I mean, he's saying he'll take the carbon tax off of everyday people, but he's going to increase it on industry. Well, at the same time, we're saying, gosh, we're not very competitive and we have no investment coming into the country. And this is a man that's saying he's going to increase taxes on businesses.
And we would have to be dealing with tariffs at the same time, right? So, yes.
Well, and we're going to let this man govern the country? Not even having to have gone to the people to say how he's going to look after us. It's terrifying.
So your preference would be then an election as soon as possible, right?
An election 3 months ago would be my first preference, but since we can't go back in time,
And it sounds as though your preferred outcome would be a conservative government then.
Absolutely. With one other comment, if I could just throw it in, Rob.
Sure.
Dominic LeBlanc was on the TV a few days ago and was asked about recalling Parliament to pass the legislation that was necessary to protect Canadians if tariffs came in. And he said, oh, no, we don't have to recall Parliament. All of the tools are in place to tweak EI, improve payout.
Well, I'd like to know how that is the case.
Yeah, I don't know either, but that was his comment, was we don't need to recall Parliament to look after people. It's all, we can do it without Parliament, which is terrifying in itself, but, or it's concerning that Parliament, he considers Parliament so unnecessary, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. So.
Yeah, it's a very good point that you make there. I mean, I guess there would be some things that the government could do, maybe on changes to qualifications for EI, for example. Maybe they could do that. But when it comes to actually spending money, the government cannot spend money unless it's been approved by the Parliament, unless MPs have voted, yes, you can spend this money. And the longer that goes on, especially as the clock ticks down to the end of March, the more difficult that is going to become. Thank you, though, Judy, for your call. Good to hear from you. Bernie is in Mississauga, Ontario. Up next, Bernie. Hi, Bernie.
It's Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I think what should happen is if Mark Carney wins the leadership, I think they should run it right out till October for a federal election. I think Jug McSteen should back him up, because I think for another month these tariffs are all going on board, and we'll have to get relief for the businesses and for the working people of this country. So I know the Tories in a hurry to put a pipeline in everybody's backyard, but they can wait for a while to get back at the trough. And I think Singh is low in the polls. So what he should do is, if Carney and them are going to pass legislation when the Parliament gets back to work to help the Canadian people that are going to be disadvantaged by these tariffs, I think it's a good thing. And we're having a provincial election right now in Ontario. I think the people will be tired.
Right. Well, that election is going to be over in a little more than 2 weeks from now, on the 27th of February. That election will be over and done with in Ontario, and the outcome seems pretty well predetermined in Ontario, what's going to happen there. But
I think
that's what you would like to see happen, Bernie. And I said there are no wrong answers. If that's what you want to see happen, that's fine with me. How does that compare to...
I can't see what the big rush is, because we've got another 6 months or 7 months, and with all that's going to come down the pipe in 30 days or less, I think it'd be better for the people to wait and for the government to wait, and maybe act on legislation when the Parliament gets back to work. And Jug McSteen can back them up, because he's low in the polls. He got nowhere to go but up. So I think that would be the most reasonable thing to do.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think that's what's going to happen. I think that if Carney wins the leadership, that he'll have to come back through measures to help the people in the country, and I think that Singh will back him up, because he got nothing to lose.
All right, Bernie, interesting. Okay,
everybody saw.
I suspect that's the minority opinion today, but it's certainly a scenario that could unfold. Thank you for your call today. It's Talkback.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan is in Waterloo. Hello, Ryan. You're on the air.
Hey, Rob. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, I'm fine. Thank you.
Awesome. So just to literally mirror everything that Judy said, 100%. And the caller before her, I was literally going to say the exact same thing he said. We need to get into Parliament, not necessarily just the Liberals, predominantly the Liberals, but we need to get into Parliament, and we need to investigate all dealings, figure out where all the money went, figure out where our tax dollars are going, what initiatives have been put into place. Let's talk about the shell companies, the slush funds, all those things. They need to be exposed so the next generation of voters can see what's possible at a government level.
Okay. So would you like to see an election, or would you rather get Parliament back to do investigations, say, before there's an election?
I think that the answers we'll find might determine who we vote for in the next election.
I see. Okay, so you would like Parliament recalled then, right?
Essentially. I mean, recalled. Doge, just the same thing. Let's get
you want to see a Doge, like a Department of Government Efficiency kind of thing.
And government and efficiency never usually go in the same sentence together. Why can't they?
Right. Okay. You would like to see a Canadian version of Doge.
Essentially, yeah. Just exposing what has happened over the last 9 years. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ryan, good to hear from you in Waterloo, Ontario, to Langley, British Columbia. Peter is on the air. Hello, Peter.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good, Peter. So what would you like to see happen in the next few weeks or months in federal politics?
I whittled down my list to just a few items.
Okay. All right.
The number one thing is I think that we need to gut the government, like I said before, with reckless abandon. That is a bigger threat to me than the tariffs that the Americans are threatening us with, because if Americans can get their government down and under control, and our government is out of control and high taxes, what have you, that's going to bleed our industry. Our industry is going to pack up and move down there. And that is a bigger threat than the tariffs are going to accomplish the same thing. But if we can't be competitive on a government level, then we're going to lose everything. And,
so I don't want to put words in your mouth, Peter, but it sounds like you're kind of seeing eye to eye with the previous caller who kind of likes this idea of a Department of Government Efficiency. Is that a Doge of Canada kind of thing? Yes?
Yeah, that's
really?
exactly right. The problem isn't necessarily the politicians, because I don't think politicians are very bright and knowledgeable to begin with. It's the bureaucrats that control everything, and those are the people that we need to get under control. I mean, the politicians are supposed to protect us from the bureaucrats, and when you think about government, the government is about controlling, and the bureaucrats are controlling us, and that's just the wrong way. They're supposed to be working for us, and these career bureaucrats and what have you, boy, put them on an ice floe up in the Arctic kind of thing and let them go, because they're the ones that are holding us back, I think. And as far as
right now, though, Peter, we have a parliament that is prorogued and a liberal leadership race that is underway. Okay, so what should be happening on those fronts?
Oh, it's difficult. We're boxed in completely because, on one hand, we have to have a fair election, which means that the Liberals have to have a leader in order to put up, alternatives to the Conservatives.
Sure. Okay.
So without a Liberal leader, how can you really have a fair election? But we need an election in order to get things, going in a big hurry, because we're under threat, kind of thing. So
then, do you think whoever wins, because that'll be settled? I mean, that thing is going to be settled March 9th. That leadership race. Should there be an election shortly thereafter? Called by the person who wins that.
This is a time where Carney needs to really say what he stands for and what he will do, because I think Poilievre, I'm a conservative to begin with, but I believe that Poilievre is going to sell us out. I think he's going to make deals with Trump that are going to further erode our sovereignty.
Oh, really?
And but he will get things done. Pipelines will be built, etc. And I don't know where Carney stands on any of this stuff. And so, to answer your question, the Liberals need to put up their contender in a big hurry, and there needs to be an election, tout sweet after that.
Tout sweet. Okay.
We're in danger. We've got to get it cleared up.
Vite. Okay. All right. Thank you, Peter. Very good. Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, Peter wants that Liberal leadership race settled. It'll be settled on March 9th, and whoever the winner of that is, looking like Mark Carney right now, but I suppose it could go any number of ways. But if it's Mark Carney, then Mark Carney should seek a mandate from the people and call an election right away. Michael in Cape Breton up next. Michael. Hi, Michael.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Michael.
First of all, I'd like to see Christy Freeland take that job opening with that television show to Little Johnson. She'll be able to see eye to eye on them with everything. That'll settle her away, and she'll be happy. As far as our federal scene here, when people do something over and over and over again, look for a different result, what do you call that?
Insanity.
Okay, that explains all your Tory callers today. I'm hoping for the NDP and Jugby Singh win a majority government, that something comes out of the sky and strikes everybody between the eyes and then give them a boot in the arse, and we will get a strong NDP government.
Right.
That's good. Talk to you later, buddy.
Yeah. Sometimes, Michael, I think you're the definition of insanity. Let's go to Karen in Calgary. Thank you for calling, Karen. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have to laugh.
It's okay.
I just heard what you said to Michael, but that's okay. Let's start.
The ideology runs deep with that man. I have to admire it on a certain level and mock it on another. Okay, Karen, sorry, go ahead.
I'd love to see, it's not a leadership race, it's a coronation.
Okay.
Mark Carney is not in any competition with anybody. He's going to be coronated. He's going to be king of the party. Then let's hope they call an election. The only thing I'd like to see is if they do recall Parliament, I would love to see them bring one piece of legislation back, and that is the investigation of the STDC, the slush fund.
Right.
That's the whole reason Parliament was prorogued is because if Canadians found out the money that they're laundering to themselves, they would never win another election, ever. Every one of them needs to be investigated by the RCMP, as far as I'm concerned. And waste $50,000 a month on booze? Come on.
50,000. I don't know where that number comes from. $50,000 a month on booze.
That comes from the media. But I'd like to say one more thing. If they call an election, I want zero funding to go to mainstream media because they won't tell Canadians the truth. If you want a fair election in Canada, let's have some fair mainstream media. I'm tired of being told what to do. I'd like to have my own opinion.
Okay. Well, you just did, Karen. Here.
To you,
okay,
but not to the rest of Canada.
Right. Well, I would just point out I work for one of the biggest media companies in the country, Karen. But thank you for your
Rob.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Scott in Calgary. Let's fit in Scott in here. We're a little tight on time for hour number one. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Scott. Thank you.
Good.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, I'm just realizing I'm probably not going to answer your question because I'm what I'd like to see happen probably won't, because I think that Carney is an opportunist. And he thought it's way easier to become the Prime Minister of Canada by being elected the leader of the party. You can ask Kim Campbell that, than to face the general election. So once he gets to be the Prime Minister of Canada, which I think he will, I don't think he's going to give it up easily. I don't think he's going to call an election. I think he'll milk it for all it's worth as long as he can. And even I hadn't heard this Brian Lilly comment until it was brought up by one of your other callers, but that's a possible scenario because, you know, everything that the Liberals have done has been to avoid an election so far. So I don't see Parliament being called back. I don't see an election being called. I see Jagmeet Singh hanging in there and supporting the government because the NDP doesn't have any money to run an election. So they'll cave and support this Liberal government as long as they can. So you know, we could be October or longer before we get an election.
Well, Brian is saying sometime into next year. That's what Brian Lilly.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that scenario before, but you know, possibility.
Okay,
which would be
your
terrible.
Preferred scenario would be an election sooner rather than later, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep. I would.
And your preferred outcome of that election would be what?
Would be a Polyev government.
Polyev government. Okay. Yep. We'll wrap up hour number one of Talkback there. Thank you so much. Full hour just ahead, right after the latest breaking news, right after the top of the hour. Hour number two, Talkback just ahead on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
So we had a very busy first hour, but we've cleared the phone line, so the wait won't be too long. We'd love to hear from you in hour number two as we talk about federal politics today here on Talkback. We have been asking, what would you like to see happen in the next few weeks, the next few months in federal politics? For example, recall Parliament so MPs can debate and deal with the tariff issue. How about the new Liberal leader, whoever wins the Liberal leadership race, calls an election right away, seeks a mandate from the people we're into an election campaign, say, in a month from now. What do you think about that idea? Or there's this scenario as well. The new Liberal leader tries to govern with the help of other parties in order to help Canadians deal with the tariff issue. Maybe relief packages have to be passed. Would you like to see an election that results in a Conservative government? Would you like to see an election that results in a Liberal government? Just what do you want to see happen? 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Bill, is in Waterloo today. Bill, you're up, Bill. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Bill. Thank you for calling.
Good. I'm all for a peer majority, so he doesn't have to deal with Singh.
the sooner it happens, the better. Like every time I hear Trudeau talk, he makes me want to throw up.
Okay.
And what I like about Pierre is when they ask him questions, he gives you a direct answer. He doesn't go around and around and around and never answer the question like Trudeau does. And I think they should give them open reins with a majority, and I hope they do.
Okay. In order for any of that to happen, there has to be an election, sir. So you're wanting an election, right?
Hell yeah, as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
If you listen to the politicians in England, they say don't ever let him have the reins in Canada. They just think he's a fool. So maybe that's some good advice or bad advice. I don't know.
Well, I mean, a lot of those people who are saying that are the conservative politicians in the UK who were for Brexit, right? You have to remember the context there. You know, he has his critics because he was opposed to Brexit and thought it would hurt the UK economy, which it has. It has hurt the UK economy. So there's some sour grapes, I think, there on both sides. But
yeah, I think it's crazy to let Trudeau's party back in with that Carney. I think it's a terrible mistake. They need a majority conservative to get anywhere.
All right. Thank you for calling.
And I think it's great for Canada.
All right, Bill. Thank you. You've had your say. Let's go to Tom is in Cambridge, Ontario. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good, Tom. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So what I'd like to see is I would like to have a government govern, and I would break it down. I would break it down this way: is that whoever is the next Liberal leader who will be the Prime Minister gets 2 months to put a budget together. Okay.
Right.
And put it together. And then, to your point, there are going to be some bills that need to be signed here. Nothing's been accomplished through last year and else what we've had here. And I also would like to have every official party gets one kick at the can. If there is a minority government and they don't like what's going on, you get one chance to uphold or uplift the government. You get one kick at the can. Therefore, then you've had a chance to vote that, to call an election. And if you don't get the support from the other parties, that's it. You've done. Move on to the next one.
Okay.
So,
you want to see, say Mark Carney wins. Say Mark Carney wins, presents, Parliament comes back, presents a throne speech. Of course, that would have to pass first and foremost, the throne speech.
Exactly.
And then, put a budget together, and maybe the budget is filled with stuff to deal with, Trump and tariffs and everything else, and then see if that has the support of the majority of the
Well,
House.
it's got to be supported by the bloc, by the bloc NDP, by conservatives, right? But it has to be supported by one of those three, or
a majority in the House.
A majority in the House, and you go from there.
And go from there. Okay.
Yeah, but you've had the conservative governments have 3 or 4 kicks at the can here, trying to get their chance to call an election, so they think they can be the next governor, the next official leader of the country. So let's try to govern, and I think it'll be fair all around because we've got nothing passed, nothing's going on. Now we've got this issue with Trump. We've got to do something. Some relief bills are going to have to be signed.
Yeah.
So just try.
So are you hearkening back then to the last Parliament when everything was being held up because of the fight over the documents about the Green Slush Fund?
Oh, I'm fighting about everything. We've got nothing accomplished in 2 or 3 years here. We've come through COVID. We've had grandstanding, whatever you've gone out, filibustering going on. There's bills and things that needed to get passed here.
Yeah. Okay. I would just point out, and it was a majority of MPs passed a motion in the House that the government was to produce every single document related to Sustainable Development Technology Canada.
Right.
Where you had 185, as identified by the Auditor General of Canada, 185 conflicts of interest, where people on the board of that organization had stakes in companies who were directing money from that fund into companies that they had a stake in.
Right.
And that did not sit well with the majority of the members in Parliament, and the government refused to comply with that order. They didn't even have the support of their own speaker.
Right. Well,
it's about as partisan as you could find.
It's the same thing that's happening in the States here now, right now. But I do believe that you have to be accountable for what's going on right now. So, if that meant right there that Trudeau should have been dumped, then they should have dumped Trudeau then. There's no reason why, like one of your callers says, career politicians seem to be in the way of a lot of things that can be moving forward or should have moved forward years ago. So if you want to do something, let's change the political grounds here or the political playing fields here and trying to get these things in place here. Like I agree with what you said there. If there was that much evidence against the federal government and they didn't produce those things, they should have been kicked out. I'm not disagreeing with that.
All right, Tom. Thank you. Good to hear from you. But Tom would like to see the government govern, even if it's a new Liberal leader chosen only by the Liberals. At least try to govern to the point of presenting a budget and put a budget before Canadians and let the chips fall where they may after that. Okay. Alan in Calgary. Hello, Alan. You're on the air.
I'm a first-time caller, and
I appreciate that.
There appears to be an issue that they're not sitting right now. But what I suggest is maybe there's an 80-hour. You have to sit for 80 hours a month, and then if you only sit for 70, you keep the salary as it is, but use it on an hourly basis. So if it's expected you sit 80 hours a month, but if you're only there 50 hours, then you get paid for 50 out of the 80 hours. Would that solve the problem? I mean, and if you don't sit at all and you're expected to sit 80 hours, then you get $0. It's like you punch the time clock in, so you know what you're doing. Oh, yeah.
Imagine if we put them on the time clock. How productive.
Well, they'd be working overtime, right?
Maybe they would be, yeah. They would be.
Then those 185 items that weren't looked at, they'll be working there in June getting those through.
Right. But this idea that Parliament is prorogued, it just sounds like it doesn't sit very well with you, Alan.
Well, I don't get paid for doing nothing. You have an excellent program. I mean, you're really putting out. I'm sure you're spending more time than just the hours on the radio because your program is excellent. I mean,
I thank you so much for that.
So. The quality of the show, you're just not doing it in your regular hours. I can guarantee you that.
Well, yeah, thank you. But you would like to see Parliament recalled. And Alan, I thank you for your call and for those kind words. And that is one thing I could totally support. I can get on board with recalling Parliament. I don't see that happening. And everyone I ask who knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, they don't see that happening either, recalling Parliament. But I just think it's terrible that Parliament is prorogued right now while the Liberal Party sorts out its own affairs. I mean, you may not think much of the man, but we still have a prime minister. He still has a cabinet. Remember, he shuffled his cabinet not that long ago, rewarded some longtime loyalists with cabinet posts. Instead we have the prime minister traveling across Europe. The vast majority of his cabinet ministers are kind of off doing their own thing, as though it's just some other day. To me, it's just completely mad, this lack of representation and debate at the federal political level. Let's go to Kyle in Listowel. Kyle, up next.
I thought we were going to have a Team Canada approach. If we're proroguing Parliament, where is the Team Canada approach? I mean, if we're Team Canada, we're all supposed to come together. All governments are supposed to discuss what's going on with Trump. All governments and Canadians are supposed to, make sure that we're putting Canada first. But if we prorogue Parliament, this isn't Canada first. This is Liberal Party first. This is let's put our political policies first. And you know what? It doesn't matter what the Conservatives or the NDP or anybody else says. It's going to be the Liberal policy first, and that's what's going to happen. Not a Team Canada approach. So yeah, I would like to see the government come back into action there, Rob. It's disgusting how they're holding us Canadians hostage for their political benefits on what's going on with Trump. Now look what happened. We got 25% tariffs on steel. We got 25% tariffs on, I forget what the other one was going on.
Aluminum. Aluminum. Yeah.
And look how many people are going to be out of a job. I mean, I do deliveries for half these companies. I'm worried about what's going to happen with my customers, millwrights and manufacturing plants, and those ones on this 25% tariff. And here we are, la-di-da. We're just back and forth. Who's going to be the leader of the Liberal Party? Oh, is it going to be Mark Carney? Oh, we got Chrystia Freeland. It's really a joke, and I can see why Doug Ford is saying China is laughing at us because we can't even get our own stuff here in our own country on the ball here. So yeah, let's get Parliament going. Let's get all political parties together and let's discuss how we can help protect our own country first. Thanks, Rob.
All right, Kyle. Thank you. Eric in Calgary is up next. Hi, Eric. What do you want to see happen next?
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Politics? I'm good, Eric. Thank you. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
I think we need to recall the government because right now, with government so rogue, we're in such a dangerous situation. We've got Trump coming in. We have no acting government. Nobody can argue what's going on. Why are they trying to place Mark Carney? This is just wrong.
So you would support a recall of Parliament, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. They should be working right now. Why are we paying them to do nothing?
Right. Okay. Yeah. You get no disagreement from me on that. I mean, we elect, in the last Parliament, 338 people from all across the country. Right.
And we only have one person working, and he's not even working. He's jet setting over to France to talk about AI. Put your country first. Stop with your inter-party battle and just have the election. And I'm hoping that on February 14th, with this court case that's going on against the government, I hope they win, and then Pierre can put a non-confidence vote, and hopefully we can go to an election.
Okay, all right. We'll see what happens with that court case. Yeah, but recalling Parliament. I'm on board with recalling Parliament. I don't know if I'm totally on board with the courts mandating that Parliament be recalled. I just think it's the right and honorable thing to do. We elect these people to sit in the House of Commons, and they're supposed to be there debating these very things in a time of crisis and how best to respond to these issues. And Parliament is dark. The whole place has gone dark. I think it's just awful. And that's bad enough. And then you have what's going on in Ontario, where we have this ridiculous $200 million election underway that nobody wants and nobody needs. So as a result of that, the Ontario legislature is closed. The Alberta legislature is adjourned, and MLAs won't be back to work there until the 25th of February. And down in Nova Scotia, the legislature's been closed for weeks on end after a snap election, and I don't think they're back in business till next week. BC's legislature is closed. I mean, that's kind of the state of Westminster democracy in this country right now at a time of crisis. It's awful. Hello, Bob. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
Hey, how's it going, Rob?
I'm fine, Bob. Thank you. Go ahead.
Just thinking about your last couple of callers. I totally agree with what they say, but I can't believe most Canadians how they forget about the things that have been going on the last 9 years.
Okay.
And they're talking about, liberal again. And, Jasmine Singh and the NDP's, been helping them along the whole way, trying to get what they want here and there and guide them along. So, I hope there's an election as soon as possible. Carney calls an election and gets slammed, just totally wiped out, right?
Okay.
And Poilievre is the next prime minister. So
okay.
Anyway, that's my major thought. Just thought I'd.
That's what you would like to see.
Please,
all right,
all you
Bob.
Canadians, don't forget about the last 9 years. It's the same band of thieves. You know what I mean? Nothing has changed except for the king of the castle's knocked off his throne. That's basically. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but
right. You think it would be a case of meet the new boss, same as the old boss, right?
Yeah, it's just basically that instead of carbon tax, we're going to have the clown tax. You know what I mean? What's the difference, right?
Okay. All right. So, thank you.
And
thank you, Bob.
With Trump, can I say something about Trump?
Okay. Very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. With Trump, this deal he made with Canada and Mexico. Now that we made an agreement with that, and he turns around and stabs everybody in the back, and that's what Trump is. He's just a backstabber. He moves on to the next just to get what he wants, try to make you jump through hoops. Now it's time to jump through more hoops, right? So,
all right, Bob.
Give him nothing. Anyway, good day, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Let's go to Chuck is up next in Calgary. Hello, Chuck.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine, Chuck. Thank you. What's your opinion here?
Oh, I mean, we've got monkeys running the government.
And you got the Liberal and the NDP coalition that are just barely being able to push their agendas forward. Trudeau's got to go. I knew his mother back in the day in West Vancouver when I grew up.
Well, he's announced he's going. The thing is, what do you want to see happen next?
I want to see an election called this proroguing parliament. It's a joke. It's just another Liberal way of extending their agenda, right? We need to get the Conservatives in power. We need to clean house of all these monkeys that are swinging back and forth from the same branches. We're not moving forward. And, I mean, it's time for the Canadian people to wake up, guys. The Lavalin affair, you got Christina Freeland, $20.something billion over budget. On top of the $40 billion, we're already in debt. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, that's wake up. He's got to go with a steel-toe boot up you know where. And we need to move forward. Right. Yeah, hang on. And we need to have a government that cares. And when Poilievre talks about protecting our north, instead of shipping billions of dollars into the international market for people that need food and stuff like that, what happened in Palestine? They're holding...
Okay, gotta go. You're wandering all over the place, and they're going to cut us off anyway. And they don't just cut you off, they cut me off too.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we've been asking today, and we have phone lines available there right now. Love to hear from you today. 1-833-668-2577. We've been asking, what would you like to see happen in the next few weeks or months in federal politics? And one of the reasons that we wanted to do kind of a hardcore political show today and I ask you about the state of Canadian politics right now is because for many weeks, a narrative has been growing in political circles in Ottawa. And that narrative is everything has changed. Everything has changed. And what was true and almost certain before, say, the November election of Donald Trump, when it comes to Canadian politics, is no longer true or almost certain. Before the election of Donald Trump, it was widely believed that the next election would be about change. It would be about the record of the Trudeau government over the last 9 years. And Justin Trudeau was going to be the leader of the Liberal Party going into the next election, and he faced almost certain defeat at the hands of Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. But then, of course, a few things happened along the way. Donald Trump won the U.S. election in early November, and then in early December, Justin Trudeau tried to oust his finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, and replace her with Mark Carney, and that didn't go over very well, as you remember, with Chrystia Freeland, and she quit and knifed Mr. Trudeau on the way out the door, setting into motion the pending resignation of the Prime Minister and triggering this Liberal leadership race that is underway right now and will be concluded in less than a month from now. And on and off and in between, there have been these threats from Donald Trump about tariffs and all this talk about making Canada the 51st state. And now, with this latest development, there will be tariffs next month on tens of billions of dollars worth of steel and aluminum exports from Canada to the United States that would put tens of thousands of Canadians' jobs at risk. So this narrative in Canadian political circles goes, whatever everyone thought the next election was going to be about, a referendum on the Trudeau years or a plebiscite on the carbon tax or inflation or the cost of living, throw that all out the door. None of that applies anymore. And now, whenever the next election campaign begins, it's not going to be about the record of the Trudeau government after 9 years in power. And it's not going to be about the carbon tax. And it's not going to be about the cost of living or housing or immigration or crime or any of that stuff. And instead, it's going to be an election about Donald Trump and the threat he poses to Canada. And the question voters will have to decide is who is the best person to deal with Donald Trump and this threat from the United States. And this narrative continues because that is going to be the question. Instead of the last 9 years of the Liberal government in Ottawa, the Liberals have new life and lots of momentum. because they have a new face with an impressive resume by the name of Mark Carney, and he was made for the moment. That was one of the headlines this week. Mark Carney was made for this moment. And he has burst onto the scene, and he has breathed new life into the Liberal Party and has given the Liberal Party, and indeed the whole country, has given the whole country hope. New hope. That's the narrative. That's what's been making the rounds of political circles these days. Everything has changed. 1-833-668-2577. There's even some polling to go along with it. For example, it was in the news the last few days. New poll from Nanos suggesting Canadians would prefer to have Mark Carney do battle with Donald Trump rather than Pierre Poilievre, and it wasn't even close. Nick Nanos asked, which of the following politicians would do the best job at negotiating with U.S. President Donald Trump? And Mark Carney was the choice of 40% of those polled. Pierre Poilievre, 26%. Chrystia Freeland, 13%. So that was interpreted, obviously, as a troubling sign for the Conservatives, as well it should be. If the next election is going to be who can best deal with Trump, and most people are picking Mark Carney over Pierre Poilievre, then maybe the predictions of some Conservative landslide in the next election may have been premature. And in fact, McDaniels followed up with a poll that came out today that says the Conservatives are back below 40% support nationwide. The Liberals are way up compared to where they were. And that there's been a 10-point swing in a very short time. And now it's Conservatives at 38, Liberals at 30, and the NDP down to 16. And Nanos is saying issues like the cost of housing and inflation have been overtaken by issues like the Trump situation, Trump and the U.S. relationship, and jobs in the economy. And that poll was just released today. And then just moments ago, Leger, another polling firm, big headline. Leger, Carney as leader would have Liberals tied with Conservatives. Quote, a new poll suggests that if Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership race, he would erase the massive lead the Conservatives have enjoyed for the past year and a half. Leger survey suggests a Carney-led party would boost Liberal support by 6 points to 37%. It's Carney mania. 37%, putting them in a dead heat with the Tories. Poll says the Liberals are currently at 31%, the Conservatives at 40%, New Democrats at 14%. The pollster suggests support for the Liberal Party led by Chrystia Freeland would fall 3 points to 28%. Conservatives would hold at 39%. But if it's Mark Carney leading the Liberals, it's 37-37, according to Leger. So again, the narrative is everything has changed. Trump factor, the harm Donald Trump would do to the Canadian economy, it has taken over Canadian politics. It has reshaped entirely what the next election is going to be about. What you ever thought it was going to be about last October, it's not going to be about that anymore. And now it's about Trump and tariffs and the economy and who should govern Canada to deal with that threat. I'm not saying it's all entirely accurate or even that the polls are accurate. I'm saying that's the narrative that's out there. Carbon tax election, it's not going to be about a carbon tax election, axe the tax. That's fighting the last war. 1-833-668-2577. Your calls still ahead here on Talkback on News Radio.
Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is. Again, we are asking what would you like to see happen in the next few weeks, the next few months in Canadian politics. Paul in Cambridge, you're up next and on the air. Go ahead, Paul. What's your opinion?
Well, first off, I want to see an election. I want to see it soon. Sooner the better.
Okay.
As far as these polls go, my question on polls, first off, there's only one poll that matters, and that's on election day. But as far as the polling results go, how many of these polls are actual push polls as opposed to a legitimate poll? Because if you're polling people to get the information that you want, you design the questions in such a way that you get the answers you want. So if they're saying, who would you prefer to, I don't know how they phrase the question as to who you'd prefer to have dealing with Trump, but is if you would prefer the Mark Carney as a leader of the Liberal Party, you're going to get one result. If you say, who would you prefer to lead an attack on Trump, then the question might be different. It's kind of like the old polling question. Have you stopped beating your wife yet? There's no right answer.
Okay.
And that's what these push polls are. They're to get the results that they want. And it's to convince people. A lot of these polls are just there to try and convince the people, the Liberals have got a chance. The Liberals don't have a chance. Anytime I look at polling results, I go to 338 because at least they take all the different polls and average them out and apply their formulas, whatever they do, in order to give an average of what Canadians are thinking. And instead of that little spike, a poll can vary according to what time of the day that you call the person. Some people are sitting at home, not working, just collecting welfare or whatever. So they're going to say, I prefer the Liberals, because they're going to keep me going.
Okay. All right. Well, I can tell you what Leger asked with its poll. It was the fifth question. If Canada's Liberal Party were led by, and then it has Justin Trudeau, Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland as your option, which party would you vote for? Would it be Conservatives, Liberals, New Democrats, Bloc, Green, People's Party, da-da-da-da-da? So under this poll just out this afternoon from Leger, it says if Justin Trudeau was still the leader of the Liberal Party, the Conservatives would get 40% of the vote. The Liberals would get 31%. If it's Chrystia Freeland, the Conservatives would get 39%. The Liberals would get 28%. But if it's Mark Carney, it's tied, 37-37. That's what they're saying. That's what that poll says anyway.
Yeah. And like I say, I want to look at the ones that are averaged out, which is why I go to 338. It eliminates the little spikes. I saw some polls that were online, where they,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're dropping out. I want to move along. We got some other calls to get to here. Let's go to Lawrence, who's out in Calgary. Hi, Lawrence. Thanks for calling. Lawrence, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a few points there why we should be the 51st state. One, we would have 50% less taxes automatically.
Yeah, we're not talking about why Canada should be the 51st state today. We're talking about what do you think should happen next in Canadian politics?
Canadian politics? Well,
yeah.
I'm sorry to say it's a different diaper, but it's going to be the same smell. They're all corrupt. Every one of them.
All of them. Every one of them. Okay.
We're giving away our money to countries that don't deserve it. Okay. And he's carbon taxing us up the wazoo. Like, why do we have to be the leaders in carbon, saving the world's planet and that? And not only that, China, you know how corrupt this government is. How many times has he, nobody's looked at him. Why? Because his in-law is the head of the RCMP. Okay,
I don't know even who are you talking about?
The
who are
head
you talking
of the
about?
RCMP, that lady there, that little looking, I forget her name. She's in Ontario there, the head of the RCMP. She's related to Trudeau through marriage.
Okay, I don't know if that's the case or not. No.
Brother. I'm sorry.
I'll look into it, brother. Okay, thank you. I'm not your brother, and I think I'll just move along. Thank you. We're kind of asking some pretty specific questions here. There are any number of scenarios that could play out over the next few weeks, over the next few months in federal politics. Some people think Parliament should be recalled, that this is a time of crisis in this country, and MPs are elected to deal with issues during a time of crisis, and yet Parliament is prorogued. There's a Liberal leadership race underway. That new Liberal leader is going to become, by fiat, the next Prime Minister of Canada. Should there be an election right away? The new Liberal leader should call an election right away and seek a mandate from the people. Or that new Liberal leader could, I suppose, try to govern in the House with the support of the other parties and help Canadians deal with whatever impact may be on the way from the Trump tariffs. Some people want to see a conservative majority government if there's an election. It would seem increasingly people are more comfortable if it's another Liberal government. But there are any number of scenarios out there. We're just asking, what would you like to see happen? It's Talkback, and this is News Radio. All right, George, they tell me you're in Alberta and you want to talk about politics. So let's get right to it here because our time is tight. What's your opinion today?
First thing first, recall Parliament and then have a non-confidence vote. I don't care who's run the Liberals. I don't care what your polls say. A Liberal is a Liberal is a Liberal. And the sunlight is the best disinfectant. And we get Poilievre in there. Right now, he should be like he did up north there, talking about putting that base in. He should be saying, within 6 months, I will have shovels in the ground, and there will be a pipeline to the East Coast and to the West Coast. Let's go to Germany. Let's go to all these places that begged us before, for our stuff, and we can give it to them. We got softwood lumber. They don't have trees in Europe. They cut them all down. We got lots of cattle. We got
no more trees in Europe. All the trees are gone. Okay, I don't know.
I lived in England for a year, a long time ago.
Right.
And if I shot somebody on the street or cut down a tree, I would go to jail longer for cutting down a tree. I mean, Europe doesn't have lumber. Any forest they have is whatever. But I mean, Justin Trudeau had a chance, and now we lost it. Trump signed a $1 trillion trade deal with Japan. They come over asking us for that.
Right.
And they give them the middle finger. I mean, and that one other thing is if the Liberals manage to fool you morons out east one more time, I can guarantee you the next provincial election, we will elect an independent, and we will become an independent state, a dominion. I like the king. Well, I don't know this king. He's going to die soon anyways. We'll have another king. He's young and handsome, good looking, and all that other good stuff.
Right. Okay.
But,
all right.
I do not want to be part of the United States.
You want Parliament recalled, and you want an election, and you want a conservative government and shovels in the ground. Sir, I got you loud and clear, and I'm going to move along because we don't have a lot of time. Let's get to Teresa is in Calgary. Hi, Teresa.
Hello.
Hi, Teresa. What's your opinion today?
Okay. Well, I have a little bit of a different take on here. I think that the first thing that Canadians must do is to do some critical thinking and realize who is actually controlling Canada. If we look at everything that has been done in the last 9 years, it follows almost line for line to a world agenda. And I think all of these things that they're putting out now is just to distract us from what is really happening. Trudeau is not running the country. We know he doesn't have the intelligence to do it. And if you go back in history, we should start with his father and see what his father did and his father's plans. And once we actually understand what is happening in our country, then people can start making informed and educated decisions.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to inform people around here so that they can make the decisions, whatever decisions they want to make. I just have been asking today, what do you want to see happen in the next few weeks? Do you want your parliament recalled? Do you want an election? Do you want the government to actually try and govern? Just what do you want to see? It's a pretty basic question.
Election.
Sorry?
But I want it not to be overshadowed by too much media that is distracting people from what is going on. We want people like your show that actually allow for opinions, but we are defeated because of the billions that these other people are able to put in every kind of media that we have.
Okay, well, there are lots of different media choices out there. It's a big, fast media landscape, and people can listen to whatever they want to listen to and take away whatever they want to take away, I suppose. I want to thank you, Teresa, for listening to this show, and I have let you have your opinion, but I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for everyone's opinion today, everyone's calls. That's why we do Talkback, because we want to hear from you. And we'll do it again tomorrow with new topics and more calls. The latest breaking news on a busy news day is coming up next. I'm Rob Snow, here with David Smith. Thank you today, David. Great job. This is News Radio.